All right.
Buyer's Remorse.
Hello and welcome to Buyer's Remorse. I'm Darren.
I'm Justin.
On Buyer's Remorse, we hunt through each other's libraries for really bad games that we've bought by mistake or in bundles that are just hiding away. And we find those little gems and we say, hey, give this a play for an hour. And hopefully it's a real bad time. That's usually what happens to me. Justin usually gets me. I've been lucky for one or two times in the last one. I'm rambling now. I'm talking nonsense. Cut all this shit out. So, what? So what did I pick for you this time?
Poll.
What the hell is Poll?
Yeah, well, when you give me 30 games to play, there's probably going to be something in there you're going to forget.
Poll? Okay, yeah. I definitely don't know what Poll is.
Well, trust me, I didn't choose this one on my own. Poll.
Yes.
Let's get our facts out of the way. It's just from last year, May of 2022.
Okay.
Developed and published by, I think it's Iuvenus Studios and Mobile Tech, but the mobile is BUL Tech, LLC. It has mixed reviews.
Oh, good.
Which is probably why you picked it. $15 a base, however, it was free when I got it.
Ah, okay.
I'm also wondering if this is one of those you have too and you wanted to get me before I got you. I wouldn't be surprised.
So this is already boding well. All right, go for it. Tell us all about this awesome game.
First off, it has a very weird story about a king stealing pixels and turning the world from 2D to 3D, which doesn't really come into play until right at the end of my hour is the first time I saw something that really reflected that.
Okay.
Because it looks 2D.
Sounds a bit like Fez, doesn't it? Like you get the 2D world and then you can like rotate it and get into 3D.
But you're not rotating it. At least not what I've played.
Right.
So that was a weird choice. And they were sort of telling me that before I would do anything that actually involved that. Mm-hmm. The characters in the game are weird. I played some sort of blue-robed character, pixel art with, I think it's hair that moves in the wind, but I wasn't quite sure. Honestly, for the first 10 minutes, I thought it was a penguin because I wasn't paying attention. Just the way the colors were and the shape of the character.
The blue penguins, okay.
It's really hard.
Yeah, hard game.
Yeah.
What's the pole? Pole dancing? What are you doing?
Do you know how in a normal game,
yes,
you'd press a button to jump?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some other games where you can jump against a wall and push away from it.
Like the wall jump thing?
Yeah,
right.
Like Super Meat Boy, for example.
Sure.
Imagine if you had a pole, and the pole is how you are jumping around.
Like pole vaulting?
Not pole vaulting. Think more...
Pogo sticks?
Yes.
Okay.
But...
So why is it not called pogo stick then?
You're not bouncing around.
Okay.
On the controller, I have the 4 buttons, right? Where I'd normally be doing actions and jumping and those kind of things. Well, each one is a direction where you're going to push the pole. So, for example, I want to jump up, I press the bottom button. Mm-hmm. If I want to push away from the wall on the right, I push the right button.
Oh.
So you have a bottom, right, left, and top jump, essentially.
We're getting into getting over it with Ben Foddy territory here, with controls almost.
I thought that's why you gave it to me. I still haven't played Getting Over It, but I feel like I have because I feel like I've experienced so many others that you've referenced. Oh, that's like Getting Over It. Yeah, it's not great.
No.
Let me tell you. And the thing is, by the time I got to the end of my hour, that level was suddenly doing some things that I found incredibly interesting. And I was a bit disappointed because I still didn't want to, spoilers for the end of the episode, but I didn't want to play it anymore. And I was quite torn because finally it was doing something that interested me. But before we can get to that, we have to talk about the sheer amount of time, ridiculous amount of time, just to get through the most basic of levels. Because what they've chosen to do is have these, for example, the thing that gave me the most trouble, and what I will probably spend most of the video showing when I do that edit, there are these giant blocks, like stone blocks. So these would be your walls that you're pushing against. But you can only push against them one time per block.
What kind of a dumb mechanic is that?
So that means that you have to angle your jump perfectly so that you can jump against it.
Right.
And then the idea is you're pushing against it but going back again. Sort of, again, Super Meat Boy style, except you can't do it as many times as you want. You have to do it perfectly over these two blocks.
What happens if you don't do it perfectly then?
You just fall down.
Oh my god. Wow.
And the first one, the tutorial one that they gave me, there's a little sign, and some of the signs kind of make fun of the player or character. I think it's meant to be funny, but when I'm this frustrated, the humor does not work. This one says, you better learn this one, practice here, because this is going to be important later, and sometimes you're going to have to do 6 to 8 of these at a time. It probably took me 15 minutes, maybe more, to even get over this too, and to kind of get the timing right.
Wow.
There is just a very precise place to jump from to get to the block so that you can bounce against it to the block above it to get over the top. I could bounce off the first, bounce off the second, not make it over the top. That's what I was doing a lot.
So you were getting the timing right and you're doing it. But...
Oh no, I was not getting the timing right because I wasn't getting high enough. So that meant that I was not doing it right. And also, you have to keep pushing that direction so you keep going over the top. I think there were a couple of times where I would have had it, but I didn't push far enough. I didn't push fast enough. But this is the tutorial one.
15 minutes on the first jump.
And that's the thing. I think that people who love the game, who've pushed through, maybe do really like it. I think people who like these kind of challenging platforming things, yeah, I could totally see why they would like that. But for me, no.
Just pure rage.
I never would have made it through if I wasn't playing for the podcast and I had to do it for an hour.
Oh, man.
I really thought, after about 15 minutes of this was going to be my hour.
Oh, just stuck on this first jump. What's the music like? And like every time you fail, does it play annoying sounds, or is it not as frustrating? At least in that department. How's the music and sound effects in the game?
I honestly don't remember. It's been a couple weeks since I played. I don't remember it being particularly bad or particularly good. Okay. I would say it probably is just very fitting. Luckily, it doesn't do a lot of... I mean, there are some danger spike areas, right? And what the game does is weird. It's sort of like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay.
You have to get coins, and coins are your life. But you don't... Luckily, unlike Sonic the Hedgehog, where you lose them all, you lose 10 each time you die.
Okay.
So if you get to an area that's very difficult, but every time you come back, there are 3 to 6 or maybe even more coins, you can slow down your death because they start you off with quite a lot. They start you off with hundreds.
Right, okay.
So you can stave off death for a long time if you get stuck in the right area. And in fact, I could see, if you really want to game the system, there are probably some places where you could die over and over again, but making sure that you're getting more than 10 coins at a time. Because then you go back to the checkpoint, start again. It's kind of like old Super Mario Brothers, the NES one, where you could get that turtle shell and build up 100 lives. It's kind of like that. You can
farm an area in the game kind of thing.
You could. And I could see people wanting to do that. I would not, but that's just because it's just not my style.
Yeah, it sounds pretty dire. Is there a story at all, or is there...
Well, it's the whole weird thing about becoming 3D, but your characters you encounter, there's some kid with a baseball cap on, and this cowboy who's trying to stop everything from happening. So he's always kind of one step ahead, and then you get to the next level and the cowboy says something else about what he's doing. It's just very random. Maybe that's the point.
Right.
It kind of feels like they got that asset and we're like, here's what we're going to do with it. And if that's what they're doing, great. I totally appreciate that. I think that is a fun way to do game development. But again, when I'm this frustrated, that kind of humor falls kind of flat.
Right.
You have enemies. Hitboxes are a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to jump on top of them, so you're hitting them with a pole. So that part makes sense, but there are some times where I felt I hit them with the pole, but I still died.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of game.
Yep.
There are some great checkpoints, and there are some that are just absolutely awful.
Right.
I know I've made the reference already to Super Meat Boy, but that's what I put in my notes. It's like Super Meat Boy, but with less obstacles and much more tricky mechanics.
Yeah, definitely not for me.
Yeah, and
I hate these kind of games, actually.
iteration time is low, I would say. You're not waiting a lot. It's not saying constantly, like, do you want to restart or anything like that. They did a good job of that. You basically just go to the black screen with your coins. You see the coins count down 10, and then you start again.
So what about the actual good part of the game that you said you got to at the end of your hour then? What actually happens?
Right. Okay. So I think it's the 4th level because it introduces some puzzle mechanics. There are colors that are dripping from these sort of buckets, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so right away when you start off, there's a huge jump that there's no way that you could possibly achieve.
Right.
But a drop falls, covers the brick that before was invisible because it was the same color as the background.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can jump on it and get to the next part. So it's doing a bit like what Hue did, which I don't think you've played Hue yet.
I've played Hue. I don't think I've finished it.
Hue, though, does great stuff with color, where if you make colors match the background, those obstacles disappear. That's what's happening here. You can also stand in the way of one of the colors, and because you're now that color, you can pass through what before was a wall. And so there were some interesting things going on here, using more platforming with the Hue type of puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was very intriguing. But the platforming is not for me, and I just can't see myself going back to it. I would watch somebody else play this, especially if I was watching, say, Games Done Quick, and we're watching a speedrunner do this. Yeah, sure, it'd be beautiful to see somebody who can do this well, who's got every single jump time perfectly. I actually don't think, outside of watching you do it, because that would be very fun, but I just don't see even watching somebody who's frustrated with this game. I don't think that would be entertaining to me because I've already been through it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some games where it's the opposite. Yeah, I made it through. I want to see somebody else struggle through as well.
Right.
This doesn't feel that way because I think it's not just that it's difficult. It's difficult because of the choices the developer made. If I could jump against the blocks as many times as I want, this game would be playable. Right. And I probably would say, well, that's interesting because you also have the jump against the roof. So there are some interesting things that you could do with that. There's more than one way, a number of times I saw, that you could probably get through a section if you timed it right, if you knew how to do it correctly. They lost me, though. I mean, when I spend 15 minutes on that tutorial set of 2 blocks, and you warn me that there's sets of 8 coming in the future, I'm not going to do that. I have no desire to do that.
Right. And so what tags does this get then?
Weird story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it makes more sense later. It started to make sense there, but it just kind of came out of nowhere and didn't really seem to work at that point for me. I think as well, we've seen other things like Fez and the Hex. There was the section that dealt with sort of 2D, 3D in a way that was just much better than what I was seeing here.
Right.
Difficult, obviously, and platformer because that is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Who would you recommend this to? Not me. Definitely not me. I can't stand these frustrating games. They really drive me bananas, and it's not like something like, oh, I like that feeling. You know, I hate it, but I like it. I just hate it. Like, it really makes me angry. I can't stand these games.
I think anybody who likes those sort of difficult platformers, I think that there's...
The Super Meat Boy people.
Super Meat Boy, I think as well...
That VVVVV game?
No.
No.
Maybe, because maybe it gets into the puzzle aspect more. 6V, like that, to me was something special. And I enjoyed playing that one. And I ended up finishing that one.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel the same. That one felt like, yes, it's tricky, but it's mostly tricky because you need to figure out how to do it. Here, it's about timing and coordination and knowing exactly where to hit the jump every time.
Right.
That just feels very different to me. I think perhaps people who love these sort of platformers and they do the things over and over again. I know my nephew for a while was into a game called, I think, Geometry Dash, which was a lot of these sort of quick platforming things. And there were daily challenges and those type of things. You learn how to do it over and over again, and you build the muscle memory so that you can do it without even thinking about it. For those type of players, I think that that's exactly what this game is for. And I think that's why there are a number of good reviews. People who know what they're in for, yes. For the rest of us who go, oh, this is a free game, let me try it. I did see one comment that basically reflected that. They said, look at the amount of time people have played, because in the review it always says amount of time played.
Right.
You'll see that most people didn't make it through an hour, so they didn't even really get through to see some of the interesting stuff. They just got stuck. A valid comment, but also I see why they didn't make it through. So,
especially if you got it for free, because you're like, well, I got it for free. I can't get past the tutorial. Screw this. I'm done.
But I'd imagine a lot of people refund it because it's not even an hour before you hit some of these really impossible.
But I mean, you're saying you probably got it for free. So
I did get it for free.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's like a lot of people probably just gave it a shot for half an hour. We're like, nah, balls to this. I didn't lose any money on it. Done. You know?
It's very possible as well. Yeah. That's it. I mean, if you love incredibly difficult, tricky platforming, this one may be for you.
But not for you.
No.
So, buyer's remorse then?
Yes.
Remorse.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.